We are going to summarize very briefly the presentations of the whole day and then invite all countries to join. For those live streaming, you can contact us and send us an email to the Secretariat of the USP2030 to express your interest to join the initiative. So, say this, let's start. I'm really very, very pleased to be here today and having this session. This meeting that we're having today, this joining forces together, was unthinkable 5 years ago. So it is really indeed with big pleasure that I welcome everybody to this initiative and to join for all the future action. And let's do a recap of all what has happened today. So, we have committed towards universal social protection as agreed in the SDGs where countries agreed to implement nationally appropriate social protection systems and measures for all relates to universal, including floors, a reference to ILO recommendation 202. For some memory, the Global Partnership for Universal Social Protection was launched as the United Nations General Assembly in 2016, and it has been expanded since then. But the reality is this is a story of success. It does not start in 2015 and 16. It's a history of more than 100 years. And you are now today here in ILO, an institution that it has its birthday this year, 100 years of existence. And since the beginning, it has been a creative move of countries moving towards universality for social protection. And what you have here in these maps is the first map is in 1900s, where you can see that hardly any country had any scheme. As you see, as the decades keep passing, more and more countries keep embracing and adopting social protection schemes, to the last one, which is year 2015, where you can see the world is in more brighter colors. This is the reality, this is our generational duty to make that map full of color, because all countries of the world will have universal social protection. And many countries have already done so, and not just in Latin America, as we hear a number of them, like Argentina or Bolivia, or in Asia, as we heard also from China or Timor, Leste, but also a significant number of countries in sub-Saharan Africa, like Cabo Verde, Lesotho, Namibia, South Africa, or Zanzibar, just to mention a few. And also, many development partners are joining together in this initiative, as we have seen today. So we have a dedicated website, www.USP2030.org, and you may want to go and visit there, or the issue related to universality and how to join the initiative. Joining the initiative means that we will cover all the benefits from childhood to old age. So generally we're looking at universal systems, as we saw in a panel this morning, that will support from child benefits to maternity, disability, old age pensions, etc. For the poor and for the non-poor. This is for all universal. There are many paths towards universal social protection, something we saw there too. Some countries have done universality in one scheme immediately, overnight. Some others have done it progressively. There are many ways to move towards universality. And we saw also in a very important session all the good arguments why countries will move towards universal social protection, because of the significant impacts on reducing poverty, on increasing human development and productivity, on promoting peace and social cohesion. Many people have expressed that during the day. So how are we going to do it? So generally, we start by calling a national dialogue, calling to all the relevant stakeholders. We identify the gaps in social protection that might exist in that country. We determine appropriate social protection scheme driven by the national priorities of the government. So thinking which are the ones we're going to extend and how will be the benefits. We cost these schemes. We identify the sources of fiscal space, and then we discuss with the Ministry of Finance the financial and human resource implications, and we agree again through national dialogue with workers, employers, as well as any other relevant stakeholder, how to the path, the strategy towards universality. Now, critical issue is financing. So, is universal social protection affordable? The reality is it's affordable in many developing countries. These are some estimates done at, a universal social protection floor for all will cost between 1 and 9% of GDP. But clearly, lower income countries will have to take a progressive approach. The key issue to understand, as many have also pointed in the section on financing, is that fiscal space for social protection exists even in the poorest countries. And there are a number of measures that are supported by the United Nations as well as the IFIs that will increase the budget of the government to develop universal social protection schemes. And we have heard today of a number of cases in which there has been a reallocation of public expenditures, in this case energy subsidies. But there are also other ways, like increasing tax revenues, like expanding the collection of social security contributions, fighting illicit financial flows, lobbying for increased aid in the case of least developed countries, tapping into fiscal and financial foreign exchange reserves, restructuring debt, and adopting a more accommodative macroeconomic framework, as we hear from our colleagues in Egypt, for instance. Say this conference, we launch a call for action for all countries to join. And Anush, my colleague Anush from the bank, is going to continue.
Hi, I'm Anush Bejanyan from the World Bank. Sorry you cannot see my name. Isabel and I have been partners in this social protection USP2030 for many years, and we're very happy to be here to bring this to this culminating conference. And first of all, the partnership has expanded since the 2015, and you will see we have draft call for action for your attention on display there. You see on the screen many logos. So to say the least, we have European Commission, UNICEF, German Development Cooperation, OECD, the Social Protection Floor, FAO, France, many others in this partnership. So, and we actually call on all of you to expand this and make it a more global effort, so it includes all the partners in countries. So this call is for everyone to join, and I'll also speak how to join. But what we wanted to do as a result of this conference to share what kind of action can be done by each of the organizations and by the governments going forward. First of all, as we saw, this is a call for actually the Agenda 2030. And in the Agenda 2030, the governments who signed up to the agenda and international organization have committed to actually expand the social protection coverage for all. And for that, we thought that the first action is to think through the protection through life cycle. Everybody today thought that those throughout the life cycle who need social protection should have the access to it, including through different types of social protection like social insurance, social assistance, and other means. And that should be embedded in the legislation. The second one that the coverage that we discussed today is actually, was demonstrated, it's very low, so it's time to expand that coverage so everybody has access to the social protection, and the social protection is inclusive and nobody is left behind. It has to be embedded in national ownership, and as many of the government representatives spoke today, it has to be national development strategy and embedded in the strategy, and relevant action should be in the national strategy. As we spoke in the last session, financing, sustainable and equitable financing is key to ensure sustainability and fairness of the social protection system. So it's extremely important to raise domestic financing, and as previous panel spoke, and also complement that with the international financing. And finally, it has to be inclusive process for the participation and social dialogue by all the partners, and there should be a representative or relevant organization, as we saw, the workers' organization, employers' organization, and civil society partners, so that it's actually an inclusive process. So these are the 5 actions that you can find all both in the presentation that we will distribute it, but also on the paper copies over there. So we call on all of you to join this partnership, to commit to this action call, and I wanted to let you know how to do that. First, we welcome every partner who wants to join and fully supports the objective and vision of the partnership, but also contributes to the partnership through the different activities, including the implementation in countries, but also at the global level for knowledge exchange and advocacy. You can also, as members, we can all benefit from the partnership by joining it, because we see this as a movement, as a global network of different actors that actually do bring their knowledge and experience to the universal social protection and are jointly committed to achieving the target of SDG 1.3 through exchange of country experience and engagement at the global level for sharing these experiences. So how to join? You can find more information, as Isabel said, on social protection, www.USP2030.org, but you can also contact the Interim Steering Committee at the Secretariat at USP2030.org. If you pick up the piece of paper there, you will have all that information. With that, I think we also wanted to have few partners in this endeavor to speak about their commitments and their contributions to the USP 2030 partnership. First, we have Madam Armanda Berta dos Santos, from Minister of Social Solidarity and Inclusion from Timor Leste. Please.
Excellencies, distinguished members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am very happy to participate in this high-level conference. I am pleased that my country, Timor-Leste, is among the group of countries they are considered champions and pioneer in universal social protection. This country shares the same goal, and we are here today to share experience and best practice. I will breathe on why having and strong and universal social protection system was crucial in strengthening my country, and I will elaborate on the implementation of the social protection system in Timor-Leste. Social protection system is priority to my country. Our constitution mentions that everyone has the right to social protection. Nevertheless, still many people live below the poverty line, and therefore the state must provide solutions to overcome poverty and must not let them live in vulnerable setting. In the year they followed independence, the government focused its school protection endeavors on the assaultment of displaced people during the conflict of 1999 and of providing support to the most essential need, using mostly in-kind conflict justice export. Social protection system in Timor-Leste consists of 26 policy and program implemented by 6 ministries in charge of the areas of education, justice, health, public works, veterans, social solidarity, and inclusion, and vocational training and employment policy. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, my government has implemented the following social protection program: pension for older persons and people with disability, universal percent for the person with disability and all persons with more than 60 years old. Every year, the government allocates budget from in this 38 million American dollar for this program. Subsidies for veteran and liberation combatente with yearly of 111 million American dollar. Subsidies mother allowance entitled to poor women with children, and the budget allocated is 8 million American dollar every year. Social security regime established by the government in 2060 to protect public and private workers every month. Every month, the workers must contribute 4%, and the employer must contribute 6%. In Timor-Leste, all citizens have access to free health service. In particular, we have developed and integrated the community health service program, SISCA, that I am to bring essential health care service closer to the community, and it is offering monthly in its village. To extend the reach of health service, the program team makes home medical visit, delivers medicine and dietary supplement according to patient need, and provides information regarding the personal health of each family member. Timor-Leste also provides financial support to each citizen. They need medical treatment abroad. In relation to children, since they are a vulnerable group in all societies, my country is committed to provide children with immunization, vaccine, malnutrition, protects them from violence, and promote the civic education in primary school and primary school. Breakfast and lunch are provided to all children. I would like to acknowledge by thanking the organizer of the meeting, ILO and USP2030 for giving me the opportunity to participate. I hope my country experience may inspire others to achieve universal social protection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We would like to welcome Timor-Leste to join the USP2030 partnership, and thank you very much. Our next partner is Ms. Eppu Mekkonen, Senior Advisor in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland.
Thank you very much. I'm going to echo the theme of 100 years that was referred to previously. And we've been hearing a lot of very diverse, very concrete examples today of social protection systems. And what I will do is to tell the story of Finland. We gained independence 100 years ago, so this is something that we have been looking in detail. And while we are fully aware, all of us, that we all have our own histories and very distinct paths, there is at least one kind of underlining common theme, which is the principle of human rights when it comes to social protection. And no model can be sort of copied and pasted anywhere, but I'm going to talk about the story of Finland as it still remains relevant as we are thinking of what is possible. So we're thinking about Finland now, where it's a wealthy country, it comes at the top of many international assessments. It is fragile, apparently we are the happiest, although when you tell this to the Finns, we tend to go, and find something to complain about. But still, it's the best country to be a mother in, and it's competitive and innovative. But this was not always the case. So 1917, 100 years ago, when Finland got independence, we were one of the poorest countries in Europe. And just a year after independence, we had a horrid civil war between, so to say, the poor and the rich, the landowners and the landless. So that was not it was not an ideal starting point for starting to build a social protection system. So what did the path look like? It looked progressive. And there were 3 critical measures that were implemented after the Civil War. There was the universal free primary school, there was universal pension, and universal child grant. So in practice, you will have children of both conflict parties in the same school, both learning and eating together, because also what was implemented was the universal free school meal. And also came along the baby box that you may have heard of that has been contributed to the drastic decline of infant mortality. It is not a magic box, it's a cardboard box, but it is a conditional transfer that is linked to pre- and postnatal checkup. So in fact what it does still, it brings people at birth to the system. It is the system that decreases infant mortality. So 4 lessons that have lasted for the century. First one, a country doesn't need to be rich to begin. We were not. So rather, investing in universal social protection creates the security and the opportunity for driving prosperity. Number 2, social protection improves social integration. We've heard about this today many times. So universal social protection instruments have often been used as peace dividends, for example. We know about the impact on social stability and cohesion. 3, wisely designed social protection systems can reduce poverty and inequality and advance sustainable development. And 4, reduction. One of the impacts is reduction of gender inequality. So maternity protection, gender-sensitive pensions, universal child grants are critical. Very practically, if you look at universal education, reduction of child mortality and improvement of child health are disproportionately benefiting the girl child. So we have learned that there is significant interest in developing universal access to social protection among Asian and African countries. And through the EU Social Protection Systems Programme, the government of Finland's National Institute of Health and Welfare has been working very closely with partners in 11 Asian and African countries. And the task has been to support the partners in the efforts to systematize the national capacity development for social protection. And the conclusion here is that social policies and social protection systems may appear as a cost in the short term, but in the long term they are profitable investments in so many ways. And yet social protection has been an underutilized instrument for development so far. So I'm going to conclude by really welcoming new partners to join the USP2030 as a commitment and as a joint path. Because really, if not now, then when? We are looking at the world that is changing so fast. We are looking at the unpredictability that is being brought by climate change, by increasing fragility. We're looking at things like disruptive technology that is changing the scene. And this is precisely the time that demands systems that are guaranteeing basic security and protection so that we can adapt and adjust in a way that supports the well-being for all. Thank you.
Thank you, step of a very inspiring course of journey of the Finland to today's world and of social protection. It's very inspiring. So we're very happy to have you as partner in this endeavor. Next, I would like to call on Mr. Panky Sumani, Deputy Minister of Population and Labor of Indonesia, please.
Thank you very much. Our social protection history is not as old as Finland's history. We just started in 2005, actually, the reform, I mean. And listening to the stories from Senegal, Namibia, Egypt, and Bulgaria, I believe that actually it is very familiar with what we had in the past. By 2005, we had about 45 social assistance programs, 8 different social security programs, and we tried to merge, to consolidate, and we tried to make a few programs that are nationwide. In the past, all were actually low coverage, underfunded, and ineffective. So we need to really understand how we could merge them and then finance them properly. So this is actually what we have now. We only have 14 social protection programs, and we have 4 pillars here: economic support program, or the productive social protection programs that have about microcredit, SMEs training, vocational training, community economic groups. We have basic services program covering gas and electricity, water, sanitation, and housing. We also have social security program, basically consists of the labor-related social security and health insurance, social health insurance. And the social assistance program that we have is for scholarships, rice subsidy, and conditional cash transfers. And I agree with what we had learned so far, that social protection coverage has been part of the development accomplishments in Indonesia, because now our unemployment rate currently is 5.34%. And last year only, we created almost 3 million jobs. And the poverty rate now is in single digit, 9.66%, while when we had the Asia financial crisis, our poverty rate was 26%. And then Gini ratio now is about 0.384. We have 3 digits because it is very sensitive to the parliament, because they would like to know whether you really make progress or not. So actually, we are now going towards the upper middle income country. So what we have in mind is we have to provide better jobs and improved welfare. But since when you look at the coverage of the informal workers, it is still 2.5% of the total 70 million informal workers in Indonesia. So the challenge is actually how to address the low coverage of middle income group to social insurance, especially for the labor-related social security programs. This is what we address as the missing middle. The number is about 104 million people here. So what we are aiming is to provide them with access to job information, better jobs, decent works as well, and social insurance too. We also would like to provide training for labor force and entrepreneurship. So this is actually the main challenges of our social protection right now. And what we are going to do for the next 5 years, bearing in mind that we are going to have new government starting April, we would like to improve the capacity of the local government in social protection. So that's why we have institutional building on planning, budgeting, and monitoring evaluation on social protection. This is actually targeting to the local government apparatus. We would like also to promote single window services, providing integrated data, complaint resolution and services, adaptive social protection. Recently, we have so many natural disasters, and we would like to have some idea of how social protection would be an effective tools in dealing with the natural disasters. We would like also to increase the coverage of informal and people with disability, and of course, to improve the social insurance benefit. So the way forward for our USP and SDGs 2030 is that actually We have achieved in 2018 the proportion of health insurance is close to 80%. We would like to make it into 96% by the end of 2024. And the proportion of labor insurance programs is about 24% now. We expect to increase it by 30%. The most challenging one is to increase the informal workers. And the percentage of our budget for social protection is about 13.7%, and we would like to increase it further. So by the 2030 SDGs, we would like to have social protection system for all, and improve fiscal policies, wages, and social protection line. For example, we would like to improve the tax coverage system, incentives for the fiscal policies related to social security and skill development programs, for example. We also would like to improve wage standard policies and wage management at the regional levels. And the most important thing is the program governance. We need to improve the program governance, covering, for example, socialization to informal workers, reduce inefficiencies in operational implementation, better targeting mechanism, improve unified database, social protection coverage, and benefits. And I think I'm very happy that I joined this global partnership of social protection, because I learned a lot from this today conference. And I think in Mexico I also learned a lot from the USP2030 there. Thank you very much, Pak Christoph, for inviting me to this conference. And very happy to work with you to achieve the Indonesia's USP2030. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing the concrete action that Indonesia is planning to undertake to achieve the 2030 agenda and coverage of social protection for all people in Indonesia. This is very inspiring. Thank you. And next we would like to go to Her Excellency Dr. Maria Jesus Miranda, from Ambassador for Cape Verde. Thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Excellencies, Madam Minister, Ministers, dear fellows, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Please allow me to start by thanking the ILO and all the partners in organizing this conference. And the thanks go on behalf of the government of Cabo Verde, and especially on behalf of the Minister of Health and Social Protection, who couldn't be here because of other agenda commitments. For us, it's a great honor, but it is also a big responsibility to participate in this closing session and share the experience, the vision and the experience of Cabo Verde, and show also how this experience is aligned with USP2030, even though it's much older indeed. That's what we are going to try to share with you. And now you will allow me also to switch to French, because I'm afraid my contribution is prepared and it's written in French. I'm sorry. Not for the French, but for the way it is done. Thank you. Cabo Verde, petit pays.
Cabo Verde is a small island country situated in the Atlantic Ocean with a little more than 500,000 inhabitants. It's independent and democratic since independence around 44 years ago. Cabo Verde has also believed in social security. In fact, the right to social security is inscribed into our constitution. In 1982, less than 7 years after independence, we were able to create a social insurance system which already foresaw a progressive extension of protection to all workers, and in 2001 we established the basis of a complete and holistic social protection system which contemplates contributory benefits, non-contributory benefits, services and others, a system which puts the citizen and the citizen's life cycle at the very center of policies, a system which envisages universal social protection. The road is a long one and the challenges and constraints are constant, but in a progressive and continuous way we have been able to construct a system which offers more and more protection to our citizens. As examples of the most recent measures I'd like to cite the implementation of unemployment insurance, the only branch which was missing to cover the 9 which were foreseen for social insurance, the implementation of the minimum wage regime, a supplementary pension to Cape Verdeans abroad in situations of great vulnerability. There are around 4,000 of them. The adoption of the National Health Care and Services Plan, the increase of pension benefits for old persons of 20%, an increase of the number of beneficiaries, and finally, the increase of the ceiling for co-participation in payment of medical costs to 50%. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Cabo Verde is committed to the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. The main instruments of governments, i.e. the governmental plan and program and sustainable development program indicate clearly the interdependence of human rights, including the right to development under the Sustainable Development Goals. According to the vision within these documents, the degree of social development of a society is a key indicator for evaluating the quality of democracy of the society. There is no real democracy unless the principles of justice and equality of chances are respected. This principle is sought and achieved through active policies to combat poverty, reduce inequalities through promotion of decent work and access to revenues for all. Throughout its existence, Cabo Verde has tried to implement a social security system which guarantees effective protection to all citizens, particularly to old persons, the sick, those who are in maternity or in situations of economic vulnerability or of disability. But in a country like Cabo Verde, recently graduated from the list of least developed countries, we are very exposed to external factors and our social security system is constantly challenged. The main challenge is ensuring the sustainability and durability of the system in the medium and long term, guaranteeing a continuing improvement of the services provided. These two objectives are sought through broadening coverage and maximizing available resources and mobilizing resources to this end. Reforms have been implemented to create the National Social Security Council to coordinate actions of all stakeholders and the creation of a pension fund which is managed by an independent organ. Extending coverage to all categories of the population not yet covered is a major challenge given the level of the informal economy, which is very high in our country. But we have made considerable efforts and have seen positive results, which I've already mentioned. The authorities of Cabo Verde also believe in the interconnection between solid and inclusive economic growth, enabling the creation of new jobs, and a universal social protection system which is really functioning, and therefore we implement all means to achieve both of these essential elements of social development and economic stability. All measures to modernize the system, rationalize costs, reduce bureaucracy, and increase the use of new technologies such as ITCs, among others, are absolutely essential in this perspective. And in this context, we'd like to underline the importance of partnerships at a national, regional, and global level for mobilization of resources, knowledge, skills, and technologies. The exchange of experiences and best practices like these are really important. We'd like to conclude by congratulating the ILO and their strategic partners, the World Bank and other strategic partners for this initiative. We also would like to talk about this as one of the most positive outcomes of the centenary initiatives, and we believe that there are excellent prospects for intensifying partnership among stakeholders to benefit universal social protection. We see social protection as a human right and therefore as an objective to be achieved under Agenda 2030 on sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador, and thank you for Cape Verde's commitment to the Agenda 2030 and for joining this partnership. I would now like to turn to Nicola Webe, who is representing civil society organization Bread of the World and Global Coalition for Social Protection, FLOR. Thank you, and floor is yours.
Thank you. Distinguished panel, honorables, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to this conference and to share some thoughts on behalf of the Global Coalition for Social Protection FLORS. The Global Coalition is a network of over 100 civil society organizations, trade unions, and think tanks from all continents, all committed to advocate for and to contribute to the implementation of universal social protection. The Global Coalition highly welcomes the global call to action together to achieve universal social protection by 2030. More than half of the world population is still denied a life in dignity and access to the human right to social protection. To deliver on the commitment to universal social protection is a legal, a moral, a political, and also an economic imperative. Social protection is a key instrument for successful implementation of Agenda 2030, for eradicating poverty and for reducing inequality. Social protection is a human right, it's not charity for the poorest. What we want to take from this conference is a commitment to take concrete steps towards the implementation of universal social protection systems, which are rights-based and gender-sensitive, providing adequate benefits for all contingencies over the life cycle. We highly welcome the focus on a universal approach designed to overcome exclusion, targeting, and fragmentation of programs. We want social protection policies that leave no one behind and contribute to solidarity and to cohesive societies. We very much value the commitment of different stakeholders to this joint initiative, marking their collective willingness to deliver universal social protection. We wish to see this initiative flourish with broad participation of all countries around the world. It will come as no surprise that we offer and also ask for the effective participation of civil society and trade unions in dialogues on social protection at national, regional, and global level as well. There are a few good reasons for this specific demand, since civil society and trade unions play an important transformative role in realizing the right to social protection. Civil society and trade unions support the organization of women and men and their communities, often being able to successfully include disadvantaged groups. This enables these organizations to understand their perspective and needs. Civil society organizations develop concrete and specific social protection services, demonstrating that it is possible to reach otherwise excluded groups. These experiences can serve as pilots or good practices and should be taken into account and become part of comprehensive public social protection systems. Civil society organizations and trade unions also raise awareness and empower people to demand the extension and transformation of social protection systems. Involving civil society and trade unions structurally and effectively in the effort to realizing universal social protection is a matter of democratic and inclusive governance, generating broad-based support and strengthening the social contract. We know from the work of our members in many countries that capacity building and access to knowledge exchange are a felt need. Therefore, we would like to see joint learning at the core of this initiative. But we would also like to insist on sustainable financing. Social protection is affordable everywhere, not in some distant, better future. It is affordable now. Today we heard inspiring country examples showing innovative ways to expand fiscal space for social protection. Fiscal space has to be created in national budgets. However, when we talk about together to achieve universal social protection by 2030, we also have to talk about the international responsibility to support countries to create and protect their fiscal space. We need international cooperation to reduce tax evasion and to avoid excessive tax competition as well. We also need to protect the budget for social protection in times of crisis and disasters, which would include adequate provisioning social protection spending during austerity periods. Further work needs to be done also to develop a global solidarity mechanism that can provide that kind of support. Just 0.23% of global GDP would suffice to provide social protective floors for the entire world's population. The fact that the global society cannot muster the solidarity to finance that level of national and international redistribution is a violation to human rights. We need to act now. There are only 11 years to 2030. We have much work to do. To summarize what we have heard here today, we can say there is so much experience and expertise in this room and in the world, and so many good ideas how to work on this together. There's an important momentum for joint global action to reach universal social protection by 2030. We should not let it go. Nobody should stay behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicola, and thank you for bringing the civil society perspective to this, and thank you for your commitment and partnership in this. The last and not least, we go to Florian Holland, who is Senior Policy Officer and member of Interim Steering Committee for USP2030 Partnership and represents Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany.
Many thanks, and particularly many thanks to the World Bank and the ILO, to Isabel Ortiz and Anush Vesanyan for taking the initiative for since so many years. I also would like to thank all the other members of the Interim Steering Committee, for Finland, Marko Molkemäki and Timo Voipio, for the Global Coalition for Social Protection Floors, Nicola Wiebe and Bart Verstraeten sitting there, for the ITU Evelyn Astor, for the FAO, Natalia Vindarossi, and just recently also for UNICEF, Atif Khurshid. And I would also like to thank my alternate member, Christina Dankmeyer, who also has put a lot of effort in this. We would not be here with the funding of the European Union within the EU SPS and without the organizational work of the OECD. And there, let me mention one name in particularly, Ji Jun. Without you, no one would be here. Without you, we wouldn't be there. Thank you. And I'm happy that you came back, because before you were already busy again, and I was wondering if you will be there for actually hearing the thanks. Good. This shows how busy you have been during the last not only weeks but months. Yeah. It was mentioned several times there's a strong economic case, and there are many reasons for it, for universal protection. Just let me highlight one particular element. Only if you know that the risks you are facing are covered, you don't have to save for them yourself. This means you can invest. And this only works with universal social protection. So that means that everyone knows if a particular situation comes up, these additional these additional efforts, costs will be covered. And this is the reason why we can make an economic argument even better for universal social protection than just for social protection. And let me also address the question of financing. Mr. Sumani, you pointed it out. There is the missing middle of the missing middle class. And it is not only true that services for the poor are often poor services because those who have the say in the society are not there and cannot claim their rights because it's not for them. But if we develop systems which are for all, then also everyone can see the reason to contribute to. Might it be by contributions, might it be by a progressive tax system. So I think there is an additional point for financing universal social protection we have actually by making it universal and not only thinking about different vulnerable groups, but really seeing that everyone can face it. And I would like to take 3 takeaways for the way forward, which I would like to frame as from poverty targeting to triggering, ban barriers, and just join. What do I mean by from poverty targeting to triggering? It was very intriguing to read this publication of the World Bank measuring income and poverty using proxy-means tests, saying we have a 30 to 40% inclusion-exclusion errors, and this is also what many of the country experience were saying. Okay, we actually don't get to the people, and so to put it very bluntly, targeting the poor does not mean reaching the poor, but to some extent often actually excluding them. So it's quite the opposite what we want. Whereas this universal approach by saying this is something for all seems to be the way where no one is excluded. And thus we need to think, I think, rather not talking about people, but about situations and particular triggers which trigger a particular benefit. And I think this is also a question of, not a practical question only, but also a question of dignity. Then ban barriers. We have heard about many steps forward, but we also heard about some steps backward. And I think if this global partnership for universal social protection can achieve, not at least, but it should be a part of it, that no steps backward will be there in the future, but we only go forward. Might it be small steps, might it be big leaps, might it be fast, or might it be slow processes, but that we know and that every country knows going for universal social protection programs and systems will always face support. And the third thing which already very much was mentioned is just join. As you know, there are still several open seats in this interim steering committee, which has a composition of equal representation of 2 high-income countries, 2 middle-income countries, and 2 low-income countries. Currently, high-income countries are Finland and Germany. And I just would like to encourage you to volunteer, as others did, not only to join the partnership, but also to take responsibility for the partnership, which could be also in terms of joining the interim steering committee, but also in other ways. And I was very happy to hear that countries like Indonesia are interested here, that we have heard about just to say one, the Namibian examples, where a country is very much progressing in universal social protection. But we also need to keep in mind that not every country which is really a forerunner is currently here. There's also, for example, Mexico. So we really need to open up and to bring the forerunners here together. if we talk about a global partnership, we talk also about its shape. And the shape of something depends on its skeleton, and the skeleton is a governance structure. So what we expect is a broad representation, and this might be a good link to the beginning, a strong mandate and legitimization anchored in the UN system, which could be, for example, within the Commission for Social Development, but also other relevant UN bodies. And additionally, of course, we need the appreciation of other groups of countries like the G7, G20, G77, and finally, this participatory way of working is what we want to start with this conference here, because I'm sure that any initiative, of course, starts with some countries and agencies going together, but it will only hold for long for this 2030 goal if there is a strong legitimation, as Marjeta Jager, as the Deputy Director General of the EU DEFCO, European Commission, pointed out, and has a formalization, a strong governance structure. This needs to be developed, and this is the major goal also of the Interim Steering Committee. And I also think that it's good to be here, but any global partnership which has an effect will go beyond just seeing what are some common activities we could organize. But as a starting point for revising all our activities and cooperation in the field of social protection, and seeing where we can move further into the direction of universalism. We ourselves have done a publication which was mentioned, and even if you're a busy reader, just have a look at the last 2 pages. The publication faced, like USP, I think, more demand than supply, so we did some additional copies you find on the desk over there as a stimulus for our discussion, not only in this forum, but also in those to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Florian. And thank you for being a committed partner in this partnership. We appreciate. So next, we invite others to have from the floor to join or express their interest in commitment to the partnership, as Florian also invited. I call on Marcelo Abirami Caetano, ISA Secretary General, who expressed willingness to talk. And then I'll take Madam there.
Yes, well, thank you very much. And, well, I have just assumed the position of Secretary General for International Social Security Association last Friday. And I'm very pleased and I'm very proud to announce the commitment of International Social Security Association to join the Universal Social Protection 2014. So I'm very proud of it, and how we can work with USP. How can we be a member who delivers? Basically, USP can benefit from ISA in 3 ways. First way, we have a very big network. We have more than 300 members that are spread around 156 countries. So the first way to ISA collaborates in this initiative is by networking. We can increase the networking of USP. Secondly, the soul of ISA is to work on delivery of service, so to deliver service that are efficient, that are effective. So we can work on this and can enhance the work of USP regarding better service, more efficient service, more effective service. And also by enhancing institutions' capacity via works that we do, like guidelines, like capacity building and technical support. So I assume that I'm very proud that one of my very first acts as Secretary General of ISA is to announce this commitment to join the Global Partnership of USP. And thank you very, very much for this invitation, not just for the invitation, but also for this commitment to increase social protection throughout the world. So thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je me présente.
Thank you very much. My name is Anushka Kavar. I am a representative of the government of France, and I represent France on the ILO governing body. I'd like to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank you for what has been a very fascinating day of meetings, and I'd like to indicate to you that this year France will be chairing the G7. We're going to do so under the slogan, Reducing Inequality. The French Labour Minister, Muriel Pénicaud, is organizing a meeting of Ministers of Social Affairs, which will deal with 4 major issues. One of those is going to be universal access to social protection. The countries of the G7 are invited, as of now, to support the alliances that we've heard about being created today among the various parties involved in guaranteeing that universal access. That is, international organizations, individual countries, development agencies, social partners, non-governmental organizations, and so on. I would like to make a formal commitment today, following the appeal you made, to saying that the 5 actions that you tabled will be discussed at the G7 meeting of social ministers with our other partners. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Any other commitments?
Any other country willing to express interest to join the
Here? Okay. Thank you very much. I just want to announce the decision of my country, Paraguay, to join the Global Partnership for Universal Social Protection. Thank you very much, and congratulations for this meeting. Thanks.
South Africa.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to have come to this conference, and it was such a pleasure to also have our minister here, also expressing, you heard from her input, the kind of work that we're doing in the country. Incidentally, in our National Development Plan, we also call it Vision 2030, and in that vision, social protection is one of the key outcomes that government is aiming for. So we are very happy as South Africa to support the initiative and to commit ourselves also as a nation to be part of that agenda to achieve universal social protection by 2030.
Anybody else? Okay, so if there is nobody, let me thank all of you and all the speakers, and most of all our co-host Ailo and Isabel personally, for what proved to be a very inspiring day. And I want to thank all the organizers on behalf of the World Bank, and I'm very enthused and energized that there will be progress on this universal social protection in the next 10 years. Thank you. Isabel, the floor is yours.
Just to close, to say that all of those supporting the partnership and joining, please stand up.